Welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. A Borrowed Wrench and Broken Trust. The Texas heat radiated from the gravel as Caleb Cal Harding's Ford pickup rumbled into his childhood home's driveway. He needed a torque wrench for his weekend project, fixing up an old Chevy that had been gathering dust in his garage. His father, Raymond Harding, possessed an impressive collection of tools gathered over decades of working as a mechanic. Cal stepped out of his truck, his steel-toed boots crunching against the gravel. At 42, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who had built his life through hard work. His weathered hands, calloused from years of construction work, gripped a glass of iced tea he'd brought from home. The familiar sight of old car parts scattered across the yard brought back memories of helping his father in the garage. Raymond's dedication to his craft had taught Cal the value of precision and patience. These lessons served him well in his role as a construction foreman, where he commanded respect through competence rather than intimidation. "Dad," Cal called out, his voice carrying across the yard. No response. Raymond was probably in town getting supplies, a regular Saturday ritual. Cal's marriage to Jennifer Jenny Albright Harding had seemed perfect 5 years ago. She was a kindergarten teacher whose gentle nature balanced his stoic demeanor. But lately, something had shifted. Jenny's warm smiles had become mechanical, her laughter forced. She spent increasingly long hours at school, claiming extra work, but her excuses rang hollow. As he approached the house, movement caught his eye. Through the kitchen window, a scene unfolded that stopped him dead in his tracks. Jenny slipped out the back door, glancing furtively over her shoulder. Behind her emerged Dr. David Ramsey, their longtime family physician, smoothing his disheveled hair. Cal's mind refused to process the implication for a moment. Dr. Ramsey had treated him since childhood, always projecting an image of professional integrity. Now, watching the doctor's predatory gaze follow his wife, Cal saw through years of carefully maintained facade. "Jenny, honey," Eleanor Harding's voice drifted through the open window, dripping with malicious pleasure. "Was that better than last time? Did you enjoy how David touches you more than my boring son?" The glass in Cal's hand shattered. Shards bit into his palm, blood mixing with the spilled tea, but he barely noticed the pain. His mother's words confirmed not just Jenny's betrayal, but a deeper conspiracy that turned his stomach. The sound of tires on gravel announced Raymond's return. Cal watched his father's truck pull up, the older man waving cheerfully, oblivious to the destruction of his son's world happening mere feet away. "Cal, didn't expect to see you today," Raymond called out, climbing from his truck with the ease of a man half his age. "Hey, Dad." Cal's voice remained steady despite the storm raging inside him. "Just stopped by for that torque wrench, but I remembered I've got another appointment. Everything all right?" Raymond's eyes flickered to Cal's bleeding hand. "Yeah, just dropped my glass. I'll clean it up. Don't worry about it, son. You sure you don't want to stay for lunch? Your mother's inside." "No." Cal cut him off, perhaps too sharply. "Thanks, Dad. I'll catch up with you later." Back in his truck, Cal gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. The image of Jenny with David played on repeat in his mind, accompanied by his mother's venomous words. He had always known Eleanor favored his brother Lucas, but this level of betrayal transcended mere favoritism. Cal drove home in silence, his mind already beginning to formulate plans. He wasn't a man who acted on impulse. His strength lay in careful planning and precise execution. They would pay for their betrayal, all of them, but not in the heat of the moment. He would take his time, make them feel secure, and then systematically dismantle their lives piece by piece. Hours later, in his garage, Cal methodically cleaned and bandaged his hand. The physical pain helped focus his thoughts. He pulled out his phone and began scrolling through contacts, old friends who owed him favors, people with useful skills and flexible morals. The seeds of revenge were already taking root. That night, when Jenny came home late again with another excuse about parent-teacher conferences, Cal played his role perfectly. He nodded at her explanation, asked about her day, and even managed a convincing smile. Inside, though, His heart had hardened into steel, and with each lie she told, his resolve strengthened. "You must be tired," he said, watching her pretend concern over his bandaged hand. "Why don't you get some rest?" Jenny kissed his cheek, the gesture making his skin crawl. "You're always so understanding, Cal. I don't deserve you." "No," he agreed quietly as she left the room. "You don't." In the silence of his garage, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects, Cal began plotting. He would need evidence, allies, and perfect timing. The annual family reunion was coming up, a perfect stage for the first act of his revenge. But first, he needed to understand the full scope of the betrayal that had been festering under his nose. Chapter 2: Ghosts of the Past. Cal spent the next few days observing, gathering information, and remembering. His childhood memories took on new meaning as he pieced together the pattern of manipulation that had shaped his life. Growing up as the second son of Raymond and Eleanor Harding had been an exercise in perpetual inadequacy. Raymond, despite his limited means, had been a source of quiet strength. He taught Cal the value of hard work and integrity through actions rather than words. The garage had been their sanctuary, where father and son communicated through the language of engines and tools. "Remember, son," Raymond would say, guiding Cal's young hands through the intricate workings of an engine. "Anything worth doing is worth doing right the first time." Eleanor, however, had been a different story entirely. Her criticism cut deeper than any physical wound, always comparing Cal to his older brother Lucas. While Lucas pursued law school with their mother's unwavering support, Cal's decision to learn construction met with constant disapproval. Another day, playing with dirt and rocks, Eleanor would sneer when Cal returned home covered in construction dust. "While your brother argues cases in court, you're still digging ditches." Only his grandfather, old Jack Harding, had truly understood Cal. The old man's wisdom still echoed in his mind. "Some people mistake kindness for weakness, boy. Let them. The day they learn different will be too late for them." Cal pulled into the parking lot of Riley's diner, where he'd arranged to meet Mark Riley, his friend from high school. The diner held memories of countless late-night conversations, celebrations of small victories, and consolations after defeats. Mark sat in their usual booth, his once athletic frame now softened by years behind a desk. But his eyes retained their sharp intelligence as Cal approached. "You look like hell," Mark observed, pushing a coffee across the table. "I need to know what people have been saying about Jenny and Dr. Ramsey," Cal said without preamble. Mark's expression shifted subtly. "You heard something?" "I saw something. Now I need to know everything." Mark leaned back, his face troubled. "There have been rumors. Nothing concrete, but people talk. Especially when a doctor starts making house calls to a healthy woman." Cal's hand tightened around his coffee cup. "How long?" "Can't say for sure. First whispers started maybe 6 months ago." "I didn't want to tell me because you thought it was just gossip," Cal finished. "I understand. But now I need facts, not rumors." The conversation shifted to discussing the resources at their disposal. Mark had contacts throughout the town, people who owed him favors or money. More importantly, he had no moral qualms about using those connections. "Whatever you need, Cal. You helped me when I was drowning in gambling debts. Just say the word." Cal nodded, already planning his next move. "I'll be in touch." And Mark? This conversation never happened. His next stop was Sandra Sandy Davis's small law office on the outskirts of town. The legal assistant had harbored a grudge against Eleanor Harding since high school, when Cal's mother had spread vicious rumors about Sandy's family. Sandy's office reflected her personality, organized, efficient, and without pretense. She looked up from her computer as Cal entered, her expression softening with recognition. "Cal Harding. It's been a while. Remember when I helped you with that boyfriend problem in high school?" Cal asked, settling into a chair across from her desk. Sandy's hand unconsciously touched her left arm, where the bruises had once been. "I remember. What do you need?" "Information, legal precedents, and maybe some creative interpretations of certain statutes." The next hour was spent discussing divorce laws, evidence requirements, and the intricacies of medical malpractice suits. Sandy's expertise would be crucial for what Cal had in mind. "This won't be cheap," Sandy warned. "And it won't be clean." "I don't want cheap or clean," Cal replied. I want thorough and irreversible. His final visit of the day was to Ron Baker's electronics shop. The former mechanic had transformed his technical skills into a thriving business specializing in surveillance equipment. Ron's cluttered workshop smelled of solder and coffee. Circuit boards and partially dismantled devices covered every surface. Ron himself hunched over a workbench, magnifying goggles making his eyes appear enormous. "I need something special," Cal announced. "Something that can't be traced." Ron straightened up, removing his goggles. "This about Jenny?" Cal's expression must have answered the question because Ron immediately held up his hands. "Don't tell me. The less I know, the better. But whatever you need, it's yours. You saved my business when the bank was ready to take everything." They spent the next few hours discussing technical specifications for surveillance equipment that would serve Cal's purposes. Ron's expertise would ensure that when the time came, there would be no doubt about what had transpired. As Cal drove home that evening, his mind cataloged the day's progress. The pieces were falling into place: Mark's connections, Sandy's legal knowledge, and Ron's technical skills. Combined with his own patience and planning, they formed a formidable arsenal. Jenny was home when he arrived, grading papers at the kitchen table. She smiled up at him, and Cal marveled at her ability to maintain the facade of normalcy. "Busy day?" she asked. "Just taking care of some old business," Cal replied, his tone carefully neutral. "Sometimes the past comes back around." Jenny's smile faltered slightly, but she quickly recovered. "Well, I'm glad you're home. I was thinking we could have dinner together tonight." "Of course," Cal agreed, watching her return to her grading. Let her think everything was fine. Let them all think he was the same predictable, reliable Cal Harding. The time for revelations would come soon enough. Chapter 3. The Gathering Storm. As the annual Harding family reunion approached, Cal intensified his preparations. Each day brought new revelations about the extent of the betrayal he had uncovered, and each discovery hardened his resolve. In Ron's workshop, they finalized the details of the surveillance equipment. The cameras were masterpieces of miniaturization, capable of capturing high-definition video while remaining virtually undetectable. "These are the prototypes," Ron explained, demonstrating the wireless connectivity. "Signal broadcasts to this receiver here. Range is about 100 yards, but the storage is internal. Multiple redundancies, like you asked." Cal examined one of the tiny devices. "Battery life?" 72 hours continuous recording. "But they'll last weeks on motion activation." Ron paused, then added, "Cal, once these are placed, there's no going back. You understand that, right?" "Going back stopped being an option the moment I saw them together," Cal replied, carefully packing the cameras into a padded case. Sandy's office had become a second command center. Her walls were covered with sticky notes detailing legal strategies and potential angles of attack. "Your mother's involvement changes everything," Sandy said, highlighting passages in a thick legal document. "It establishes a pattern of malicious interference in your marriage, combined with the medical ethics violations we can prove against Dr. Ramsey." "I want them ruined," Cal stated flatly. "Not just inconvenienced or embarrassed." Sandy nodded, her expression grim. "We'll start with the professional angle. Medical board for him, teaching certification for her. Then we go after assets. Your mother's interference gives us leverage for punitive damages. Mark proved equally valuable, using his connections to gather intelligence about David Ramsey's other potential indiscretions. He's got a pattern," Mark reported during one of their clandestine meetings. "You're not the first husband whose wife he's taken an interest in. Just the first one smart enough to catch him." "Names?" Cal asked. "Better than that? I've got dates, locations, and witnesses willing to talk. For the right price." Cal wrote out a check without hesitation. "Make it happen. I want everything documented and verified." The reunion would be held at his parents' house, giving Cal the perfect opportunity to put his plan into motion. He spent hours memorizing the layout, planning camera placement, and choreographing every detail of what would unfold. Jenny remained oblivious to his preparations, still maintaining her routine of late nights and transparent excuses. Cal played along, perfecting his act of the understanding husband. "The reunion's coming up," she mentioned one evening. "Your mother called to confirm we're both attending. Wouldn't miss it, Cal assured her, noting how she avoided meeting his eyes. Family tradition, after all. Ron helped him test the equipment one final time the night before the reunion. They sat in Cal's truck, watching the video feeds on a tablet. Signal's clean, Ron confirmed. Audio's picking up everything within 20 feet of each unit. You sure about this timing? Cal nodded, his expression unchanging. The reunion gives me everything I need. Witnesses, opportunity, and the perfect stage. They think they're so clever, hiding behind respectability and family connections. Time to show them how wrong they are. That night, as Jenny slept beside him, Cal reviewed his mental checklist one final time. The cameras were ready. The evidence was prepared. His allies were in position. Years of construction work had taught him the importance of proper foundations, and he had built this plan on bedrock. Tomorrow, the annual Harding family reunion would become the stage for an act of revelation that would shatter the carefully maintained facades of respectability and honor. Cal would expose not just the affair between his wife and Dr. Ramsey, but his mother's role in orchestrating his humiliation. They had underestimated him, dismissed him as the simple, hard-working son who would never see through their deception. That mistake would cost them everything they valued. Reputation, career, relationships, all carefully dismantled according to his design. As dawn approached, Cal rose and dressed quietly. He had one more stop to make before the reunion began. In his garage, he opened a locked toolbox and removed a small package. Insurance against any last-minute complications. Time to give them what they deserve, he muttered, placing the package in his truck. The first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon as he pulled out of his driveway, heading toward a day that would change everything. The quiet, unassuming construction foreman was gone. In his place stood a man forged in betrayal, tempered by rage, and focused on a single purpose. Revenge served not in the heat of passion, but with the cold of an executioner's blade. Chapter 4. The Reunion's Bloodbath. The Harding family reunion transformed Raymond and Eleanor's backyard into a stage for Cal's calculated revenge. Smoke from the grill drifted through the air as relatives mingled, their laughter and conversation masking the tension brewing beneath the surface. Cal arrived deliberately late, wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans. His muscular frame, honed by years of construction work, moved with controlled purpose as he surveyed the gathering. Eleanor's greeting dripped with contempt. "Nice of you to finally join us," she sneered, adjusting her expensive blouse. "Your brother's been here for hours." "Traffic," Cal replied flatly, his face betraying nothing of the rage simmering beneath his composed exterior. Lucas approached, his designer suit out of place at the casual gathering. "Little brother," he said, clapping Cal on the back. "Surprised you could tear yourself away from the construction site." "Wouldn't miss it," Cal responded, his voice neutral, but his eyes hard as steel. Jenny's arrival minutes later sent a ripple through the crowd. She wore a sundress and her practiced smile, but faltered momentarily upon seeing Cal, recovering quickly. She approached him with open arms. "Cal, honey, I didn't know if you'd make it." He stood motionless as she hugged him, her touch like ice against his skin. Behind her, David Ramsey made his entrance, maintaining his professional demeanor despite the flash of unease in his eyes. "Cal," David nodded, extending his hand. "How's that shoulder healing up?" Cal shook the offered hand, his grip perhaps a fraction too tight. "Never better document." Throughout the afternoon, Cal played his role perfectly. He laughed at his uncle's jokes, discussed football with his cousins, and helped his father tend the grill, all while Ron, Sandy, and Mark circulated among the guests, carefully maintaining their distance from Cal while monitoring Jenny and David's interactions. "Your mother outdid herself with the decorations," Jenny commented, trying to draw Cal into conversation. "She always does," Cal replied, his attention seemingly focused on his plate of food. As the day progressed, Cal implemented his plan. During a boisterous game of horseshoes, he placed Ron's cameras at strategic points around the property. Each tiny device disappeared into the background, ready to capture evidence of the betrayal that had festered within his family. The sun began its descent as Cal excused himself from a conversation with Raymond and Lucas. "Need to use the bathroom," he explained, heading toward the house. In the relative quiet of the empty kitchen, Cal pulled out the monitoring device. The screen flickered to life, displaying feeds from each camera. He began scrolling through the footage, his jaw tightening as the evidence accumulated. Eleanor's voice came through crystal clear. "Jenny, darling, you're handling this perfectly." Cal suspects nothing. Another clip revealed David and Eleanor in the garage. "Once this is over, I'll make sure Cal signs the divorce papers. Jenny will be free, and you'll both have what you want." Cal's fingers tightened around the device as more conversations played out. The betrayal ran deeper than even he had suspected, with Eleanor orchestrating each detail of his humiliation. Returning to the party, Cal observed the gathered family members. They clustered around the bonfire, drinks in hand, unaware of the explosion about to tear their comfortable world apart. "Everyone," Cal called out, his voice carrying across the yard. "I'd like to share something." He connected his device to the outdoor television screen, the action drawing curious looks from the assembled relatives. With a click of the remote, the footage began to play. The reaction was immediate. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd as intimate conversations and secret meetings played out on the screen. Jenny's face drained of color, while David's reddened with trapped fury. "Turn that off!" Eleanor shrieked, lunging for the controls. Cal blocked her path effortlessly. "No, Mother. Everyone needs to see this." Lucas tried to intervene, reaching for the power cord. "Cal, you're making a scene?" The scene was already made. Cal cut him off. "I'm just providing the evidence." The footage continued relentlessly. Eleanor's machinations, David's predatory behavior, Jenny's willing participation, all laid bare before the stunned family gathering. Raymond stood frozen, his expression crumbling as he watched his wife's true nature revealed. "You bastard," Eleanor spat at Cal. "You think this changes anything?" "It changes everything," Cal replied, his voice steady. "Just like you wanted to change my life." "How's it feel, Mother?" The party devolved into chaos. Accusations flew as family members took sides. Some rushed to comfort Raymond, while others turned on Eleanor with years of pent-up grievances. Jenny tried to flee but found herself cornered by her disgusted in-laws. Through it all, Cal stood unmoved, watching the destruction he had orchestrated. David attempted to maintain his professional facade, but it cracked under the weight of murmured accusations and pointing fingers. "Cal," Raymond approached his son, his voice breaking. "Tell me this isn't real." "I wish I could, Dad," Cal responded, placing a hand on his father's shoulder. "But you deserve to know the truth." As the sun disappeared completely, the reunion lay in shambles. Family members departed in angry clusters, while others stayed to demand explanations. Cal observed it all with cold satisfaction, knowing this was only the beginning of his revenge. Jenny made one last attempt to approach him before leaving. "Cal, please let me explain." "Save it." He cut her off. "You'll need your excuses for someone who still believes them." The aftermath of the reunion would ripple through their community like a stone thrown into still water. Cal had lit the fuse. Now he would watch the explosion tear apart the lives of those who had betrayed him. Chapter 5. The Domino Effect. The days following the reunion unleashed a tsunami of consequences that swept through their small community. Cal watched from his office at the construction site as his carefully laid plans bore fruit. Jenny's father, Judge Richard Albright, stormed into his daughter's classroom Monday morning. Students scattered as his voice boomed through the hallway. "How dare you?" he thundered. "Do you have any idea what you've done to this family's reputation?" Jenny's attempts at explanation fell flat. "Daddy, please, I can explain." "Explain? Explain?" The judge's face purpled with rage. "I've spent 30 years building respect in this community. Now I'm a laughingstock because my daughter couldn't keep her marriage vows." The scene ended with Jenny's dismissal from her teaching position and her father's final judgment. "Don't come home. You're no longer welcome there." Her mother, Patricia Albright, took a different approach. Over lunch at the country club, she tried to minimize the damage. "Really, darling," she said into her phone, "these things happen in the best families." If Cal had been more attentive, the judge's voice cut through the speaker. "Don't you dare blame Cal for this. He's not the one who destroyed our family's name." Cal received updates about these developments from Mark, who had positioned his men strategically throughout town. Each report confirmed that his revenge was proceeding exactly as planned. David Ramsey's downfall proved even more spectacular. His wife, Olivia, didn't waste time with private confrontations. She went straight to the state medical board. "I want a full investigation," she demanded, slamming a folder of evidence on the board director's desk. "And I want his license." The evidence Cal had provided proved devastating. Not only had David violated doctor-patient confidentiality and professional ethics, but patterns of similar behavior emerged with other patients' wives. Olivia, standing in her law office, dictated terms to her divorce attorney. "Take everything," she instructed. "The house, the cars, his investments. I want him destroyed professionally and financially." The attorney raised an eyebrow. "This could get messy." "Good," Olivia replied, her smile sharp as a blade. "He deserves messy." Eleanor's carefully constructed social position crumbled like a house of cards. Raymond, finally seeing the full extent of his wife's manipulation, filed for divorce the morning after the reunion. "I want her out of the house," he told his lawyer, his weathered hands shaking slightly. "I don't care about the money. I just want her gone." Cal ensured the divorce proceedings favored his father. Sandy's legal expertise proved invaluable as she uncovered years of financial manipulation and hidden accounts. "Your mother's been planning her escape for years," Sandy informed Cal, spreading documents across her desk. "But we found everything. She won't keep a dime she didn't earn." Lucas, always protective of his own interests, distanced himself immediately. His law firm couldn't risk association with the scandal. "I'm sorry, Mother," he said during a terse phone call, "but I have to think of my career. Don't contact me again." The dominoes continued to fall. Jenny, unable to secure another teaching position, found her credit cards canceled and her accounts frozen. David's patients abandoned his practice in droves, and his professional reputation lay in tatters. Cal monitored it all from a distance, but he wasn't finished. Meeting with Sandy in her office, he laid out the next phase of his plan. "I want legal action against both of them," he stated. "Every possible angle." Sandy nodded, pulling out a thick file. "I've already drafted the papers. We can hit them with multiple suits: alienation of affection, professional misconduct, emotional distress. They won't be able to defend against all of them." Meanwhile, Ron had installed tracking devices on both Jenny and David's vehicles. "The range is unlimited," he explained to Cal. "They can't go anywhere without us knowing." Mark's role expanded as well. His men kept constant surveillance, ensuring that neither Jenny nor David could rebuild their lives in secret. "They tried meeting at a motel outside town," Mark reported. "My guys made sure the management knew exactly who they were dealing with. Place turned them away." Cal absorbed each report with cold satisfaction, but he wasn't satisfied with mere financial and social destruction. His revenge needed to cut deeper, to wound them as fundamentally as they had wounded him. "Keep watching," he instructed Mark. "I want to know everything: where they go, who they talk to, what they're planning. They don't take a breath without us knowing about it." The machinery of revenge ground forward relentlessly. Each day brought new developments, new opportunities to tighten the screws. Cal's reputation actually improved in certain circles. People admired how he'd exposed the corruption rather than suffering in silence. Jenny made one attempt to appeal to him directly, waiting outside his office one evening. "Cal, please," she begged. "I'm sleeping in my car. I have nothing left." He regarded her without expression. "You have exactly what you earned. I made a mistake." "No," he cut her off. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You chose to destroy our marriage. Now you can live with that choice." As he drove home that night, Cal reflected on the progress of his revenge. The legal system, social pressure, and financial ruin were effective weapons, but he needed more. The next phase would target their vulnerabilities more directly, make them feel the kind of pain they'd inflicted on him. He pulled out his phone and dialed Mark. "Get everyone together. Time to plan the next stage." The real pain was just beginning. Chapter 6: A Ruthless Bargain. Cal's office at the construction site became the command center for the next phase of his revenge. The legal and financial destruction of his enemies provided satisfaction, but he craved something more visceral. Mark sat across the desk, his expression grim as Cal outlined his plans. "I need men who can follow instructions precisely," Cal explained. "No physical harm, but I want them terrified." "I've got just the guys," Mark nodded. "Former military. They know how to make an impression without leaving marks." The campaign began that night. David, leaving his temporary clinic office, found 3 men waiting in the parking lot. They never touched him, but their presence and quiet words left him shaking. "The boss wants you to know he's watching," one man whispered. "Always watching." Similar scenes played out wherever David went. At restaurants, the grocery store, his new apartment, Cal's men appeared like ghosts, delivering their messages before vanishing. Jenny's torment took a different form. Each morning brought new evidence of her betrayal. Photos, videos, transcripts of conversations. Cal made sure each delivery included a personal message. "Remember this day?" One note read beneath a photo of Jenny and David together. "I do. It was our anniversary." The psychological warfare escalated. Cal's men followed David to his new job at a walk-in clinic. "Nice place," one commented, examining a medical diploma on the wall. "Shame if someone told them about your history." David's hands shook as he tried to treat patients. "You can't do this," he protested weakly. "We're just talking, Doc," came the reply. "Like you used to talk to Mrs. Harding." Cal's alliance with Olivia Ramsey proved particularly fruitful. She visited his office one afternoon, elegant in her designer suit. "I found something interesting," she announced, placing a file on his desk. "David wasn't just sleeping with your wife. He had his eyes on my sister, too." Cal leaned forward. "You can prove this?" "Better," Olivia smiled coldly. "I can use it." The medical board takes a very dim view of patterns of predatory behavior. Their partnership flourished, each feeding the other's desire for retribution. Olivia's legal expertise combined with Cal's resources created a devastating force. "I want him broken," she declared during one meeting. "Not just professionally. I want him to feel helpless." "That can be arranged," Cal assured her. "My men are very good at creating that feeling." The surveillance net tightened. Ron's tracking devices provided constant updates on their targets' movements. Cal could monitor them through his phone, watching their desperate attempts to rebuild their lives crumble in real time. Jenny tried applying for a job at a private school in the next county, Ron reported. Anonymous email took care of that. Mark's men maintained their silent pressure. They never broke laws, never crossed lines that could cause legal problems, but their constant presence wore down their target's nerves. One of Mark's men described David's deterioration. "He jumps at Shadow's now boss. Keeps looking over his shoulder. Yesterday, he dropped a whole tray of instruments when we walked past his clinic." Jenny's isolation deepened. Cal made sure her former friends received evidence of her other betrayals. Not just her affair with David, but smaller deceits and manipulations she'd practiced over the years. "Did you know she was laughing about your miscarriage?" One anonymous message asked a former friend. "We have the recording." Cal monitored the results through his network of informants. Jenny's social circle imploded as years of hidden cruelties came to light. The campaign consumed Cal's thoughts, driving him to refine and escalate his methods. Each morning brought new opportunities for psychological warfare, new ways to tighten the screws. "You're enjoying this," Sandy observed during one of their meetings. "They earned it," Cal replied simply. His revenge became an art form, a carefully orchestrated symphony of pressure and fear. He orchestrated each movement precisely, building toward a crescendo of complete destruction. The final piece fell into place when Olivia discovered David's attempt to flee the country. "He's booked a flight to Mexico," she reported. "Next Tuesday." Cal smiled for the first time in days. "Perfect. Have Mark's men pick him up. I know just the place for him." The remote house Cal owned would serve his purposes perfectly. There, he would bring his enemies face to face with the consequences of their actions. "Make sure they're both there," he instructed Mark. "It's time they understood exactly what they've lost." His path was set. The legal punishments, the social destruction, the financial ruin, all of it had been prelude. Now came the true reckoning, the moment when they would fully comprehend the price of betrayal. Cal stood at his office window, watching his construction crews below. He had built his company from nothing, understanding that solid foundations were essential. Now he would show Jenny and David that he applied the same principle to revenge. The game wasn't over. It was merely entering its final, most brutal phase. Chapter 7. The Price of Betrayal. Cal sat at his desk in the construction company office, examining the latest reports from his network of informants. The legal assault on Jenny and David's lives had begun in earnest, with Sandy leading the charge. "The asset freeze is complete," Sandy announced, spreading documents across his desk. "Neither of them can access a cent without us knowing about it." Cal nodded, his expression hard. "What about David's new clinic?" "Already handled. I spoke to Commissioner Matthews at the City Council. The licensing application has been indefinitely delayed." Sandy's smile held no warmth. "Turns out there were numerous code violations in the building. Strange how those appeared overnight. The next phase involved ensuring David and Jenny became unemployable in their chosen fields." Cal composed the anonymous emails himself, attaching carefully selected photos and documentation. To the school board superintendent, concerning the conduct of Jennifer Harding. To the medical board, regarding ethical violations by Dr. David Ramsey. The responses came swiftly. Jenny's teaching license was suspended pending investigation. David's medical practice crumbled as patients canceled appointments in droves. Mark's surveillance operation provided regular updates on their targets' deteriorating situations. His men maintained a constant, threatening presence without ever crossing legal lines. David tried opening a small clinic in the next county, Mark reported. "My boys paid him a visit. Just stood there, watching. He closed up shop within an hour." "And Jenny?" Cal asked, living out of her Honda Civic. "Tried staying at a motel, but the manager asked her to leave after receiving some anonymous complaints. Ron's tracking devices proved invaluable, allowing Cal to monitor their movements in real time. A tablet on his desk displayed 2 blinking dots, Jenny and David's current locations. "They're getting desperate," Ron observed, pointing to the erratic movement patterns. "Dave has been driving in circles for hours. Jenny hasn't moved from that parking lot since morning." Cal's revenge extended beyond the primary targets. Eleanor's carefully constructed social facade crumbled when evidence of her past indiscretions came to light. "Your mother had quite the secret life," Sandy remarked, holding up a thick file. "The affair with her tennis instructor was just the beginning. Wait until Raymond's lawyer sees this." The destruction of his enemies proceeded like a well-orchestrated symphony. Each new revelation, each financial blow, each social humiliation built upon the last. Jenny made one desperate attempt to salvage her career, applying for a teaching position 2 counties over. "Please," she begged the principal during her interview. "I just need a chance." The principal's phone buzzed with an anonymous email. Her face hardened as she read it. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Harding. We'll be pursuing other candidates." David's professional reputation, built over decades, dissolved in days. His attempt to maintain a private practice failed as Cal's influence spread through the medical community. "Nobody will take appointments with me," David confided to his lawyer. "It's like I'm poison." "Perhaps," his lawyer suggested, "it's time to consider a career change." Cal monitored these developments with cold satisfaction. But mere financial and professional ruin wasn't enough. He wanted them to feel the same gut-wrenching betrayal he had experienced. A meeting with Olivia Ramsey provided new ammunition. "David wasn't just sleeping with your wife," she revealed. "He had his eyes on my sister, too. Classic predator pattern. You can prove this?" Cal asked. Olivia's smile was sharp. "Better. I can use it to destroy what's left of his medical career." The board takes a very dim view of serial predators. The legal machinery ground forward relentlessly. Sandy filed motion after motion, ensuring neither Jenny nor David could escape the consequences of their actions. "They tried accessing their retirement accounts," Sandy reported. "We blocked it. They're running out of options." Cal's construction company thrived amid his enemy's destruction. He channeled his rage into expansion, securing new contracts and hiring more crews. "The Madison Street project is ahead of schedule," his foreman reported. "And under budget." "Good," Cal replied. "We're building something here. Something that'll last." Each morning brought new opportunities for revenge. Cal coordinated his allies' efforts, ensuring maximum impact. "Keep the pressure on," he instructed Mark. I want them looking over their shoulders constantly. Mark's men excelled at psychological warfare. They never touched David or Jenny, but their presence became a constant source of terror. Dr. Ramsey, one would whisper as David hurried to his car. Beautiful night for a drive, isn't it? Jenny found photos of herself, and David slipped under her car's windshield wipers, each with a handwritten note detailing her betrayals. Cal watched through his network as their lives crumbled. He felt no pity, only a growing satisfaction as justice took its course. You've destroyed them professionally, Sandy observed during one meeting. What's next? Cal's expression remained unchanged. Now we make it personal. The next phase would target their deepest vulnerabilities, strip away their last illusions of safety. Cal had only begun to show them the true meaning of revenge. Chapter 8. The Twisted Lullaby. Cal gathered his inner circle, Ron, Mark, and Sandy, in his office after hours. The time had come to escalate their campaign of revenge. We've hurt their careers, their reputations, their bank accounts, Cal said, his voice steady. Now we go deeper. I want them to feel what I felt. Ron placed a small device on the desk. I've accessed Jenny's phone. Full access to calls, texts, emails, everything. Show me, Cal commanded. The evidence painted a picture of desperation. Jenny's messages to former friends went unanswered. Her attempts to explain her actions met with silence or hostility. To Sarah, please, I need somewhere to stay. Response, don't contact me again. To her mother, Mom, I'm sleeping in my car. Response, you made your choices. Cal used this information strategically, revealing Jenny's private conversations to carefully chosen recipients. Each disclosure drove another nail into the coffin of her social life. Did you know what she really thought about you? Anonymous texts would ask. Here's what she told David. Mark's surveillance team reported increasing signs of mental strain in their targets. David jumped at shadows, while Jenny spent hours sitting in parking lots, staring into space. He tried buying sleeping pills, Mark reported. Pharmacist refused to fill the prescription after receiving an anonymous tip. She hasn't eaten in 2 days, another observer noted. Just sits there crying. Cal absorbed these reports without emotion. Good. Let them feel helpless. Like I did. The next phase involved Olivia Ramsey's legal expertise. She filed complaints with medical boards in 3 states, ensuring David could never practice again. The evidence is overwhelming, Olivia told Cal. Pattern of predatory behavior, abuse of doctor-patient relationships, ethical violations. He's finished. Cal decided it was time to confront Jenny directly. He sent a message to her phone, come to the house. 1 hour. Jenny arrived looking haunted, her designer clothes wrinkled from sleeping in her car. Cal let her in without speaking. Cal, she whispered, taking in the changed interior. What happened to our home? My home, he corrected. Everything here was a lie, wasn't it? No, I really did love. His laugh cut her off. Love? You thought I was an idiot who wouldn't notice? Who wouldn't find out? Please, just let me explain. Explain what? How you and David laughed at me. How my mother helped you destroy my life? Cal's men appeared silently, escorting Jenny to the basement. The room was prepared, comfortable but secure, with a large screen on one wall. You'll stay here for a while, Cal informed her. Watch some home movies. The videos played continuously, Jenny and David together, Eleanor's plotting, the destruction of their lives. Jenny's pleas turned to sobs, then to silence. Meanwhile, David's attempt to flee the country triggered the next phase. Mark's team intercepted him at the airport. Going somewhere, Doc? Mark asked pleasantly. The boss wants to talk. They brought him to Cal's remote property, a house far from prying eyes. David's professional composure had cracked completely. What do you want from me? He demanded, voice shaking. Want? Cal smiled. I want you to understand consequences. The reunion Cal arranged was carefully staged. Jenny, released from the basement but broken, arrived first. David, escorted by Mark's men, followed. Look at you both, Cal observed. The respected doctor. The beloved teacher. Now what are you? You've made your point, David tried. We're ruined. Isn't that enough? Enough? Cal's voice remained conversational. Was it enough when you took my wife? when my mother helped you destroy my life. He had them secured together, forced to face each other as recordings of their betrayal played endlessly. This is what conspiracy looks like, Cal told them. This is what betrayal feels like. Hours passed. Jenny's makeup streaked with tears. David's expensive suit was soaked with sweat. Please, Jenny begged. We'll leave town. Never come back. Like you left my father's house that day. Cal asked, sneaking out the back door. The lesson continued until Cal was satisfied they understood the depth of their mistake. Then he released them, knowing they would live in fear of his next move. Remember this, he said as they fled. Remember what happens to people who betray me. Chapter 9. The serpent sheds its skin. The final phase of Cal's revenge played out like a perfect storm. Jenny and David were free physically, but imprisoned by fear and shame. They would spend their lives looking over their shoulders, wondering when the next blow would fall. Cal sold his old house, erasing the last traces of his former life. The new property he purchased reflected his transformed identity, stark, imposing, secure. His construction company flourished. Cal channeled his newfound ruthlessness into business deals, expanding aggressively. The Thompson contract is signed, his project manager reported. Biggest deal yet. Good, Cal nodded. We're building an empire here. Raymond visited the new house, still struggling to understand his son's transformation. You've changed, son, he observed. How to change, Dad? World's not what we thought it was. Your mother isn't your problem anymore. Cal cut him off. You're better off without her poison. The lesson hadn't been lost on others. Cal's reputation grew. People treated him with new respect tinged with fear. His inner circle remained loyal. Ron's technical skills, Mark's muscle, and Sandy's legal expertise had proven invaluable. Whatever you need, boss, Mark assured him. We got your back. Sandy reviewed their handiwork with professional pride. They'll never recover from this. Not professionally, not socially, not financially. Good, Cal replied. Actions have consequences. He kept tabs on his victims through his network. Jenny had left town, drifting between cheap motels. David had abandoned his medical career, working manual labor under an assumed name. Eleanor's attempt at reconciliation met with cold rejection. Cal, please, she begged through his locked gate. I'm your mother. My mother died the day she helped destroy my marriage, he replied through the intercom. Leave before I call security. The man who had walked into his father's house that summer day was gone. In his place stood someone stronger, colder, more calculated. His new house contained no photos of his past life. The walls held architectural drawings instead, plans for future projects, expansions, growth. You gonna rebuild? Raymond asked during one visit. Already have, Cal replied. Just not what you mean? The construction company's success brought new opportunities, new contracts, new power. Cal wielded his influence like a weapon, ensuring his enemies could never rise from the ashes of their old lives. Jenny's final letter arrived unopened, returned to sender, stamped in red. David's medical license revocation became permanent, his appeals denied by boards in all 50 states. Eleanor's social circle evaporated as Cal's influence spread through the community. Funny thing about revenge, Cal told his inner circle. It builds something new while destroying the old. The transformation was complete. Cal Harding, the trusting husband, the dutiful son, had shed his skin. The man who emerged was harder, sharper, more dangerous. His father asked once if he regretted his actions. Regret? Cal considered the question. I regret not seeing it sooner. But what I did? No, never. The lesson was written in the ruins of 3 lives. Betrayal carried consequences. Cal had become someone who could enforce those consequences without mercy. The game's changed, he told his team. We're playing by new rules now. The construction empire grew. Cal's reputation spread. People learned to fear his anger and value his loyalty. The servant had become the master. The victim had become the victor. The betrayed had become the betrayer. Cal Harding stood in his new office, looking out over the city he was helping to build. The past was dead, but its lessons lived on in the man he had become. The serpent had shed its skin, emerged stronger, more deadly. and the world would remember the price of betrayal. Epilogue, 10 years later. The Harding Construction Group headquarters dominated the Houston skyline, its glass and steel structure a testament to Cal Harding's transformation from small-town contractor to construction mogul. Inside his top-floor office, Cal reviewed the latest acquisition reports, his hair now streaked with gray at the temples, but his eyes still sharp as razor wire. "The Martinez Group accepted our terms," his assistant reported. "That makes 3 major competitors absorb this quarter." Cal nodded, satisfied. The past decade had seen him build an empire on the foundations of his revenge. The lessons learned during that summer of betrayal had shaped his business philosophy: trust few, verify everything, and never show mercy to enemies. Mark Riley, now head of security for the Harding Group, entered with his daily briefing. The years had added weight to his frame, but his loyalty to Cal remained unwavering. "Got the latest surveillance reports," Mark said, placing a tablet on Cal's desk. "Thought you want to see them yourself." Cal scanned the updates on his former enemies. He maintained watch over them, not from lingering anger, but as a reminder and a warning to others. Jenny had ended up in Arizona, working as a waitress under an assumed name. Her attempts to return to teaching had failed. Cal's influence reached far beyond Texas. She lived alone in a small apartment, her dreams of family and success reduced to survival. "She tried applying for another teaching position last month," Mark reported. Usual anonymous tip took care of that. David Ramsey's fall had been even more spectacular. After losing his medical license, he drifted between menial jobs, eventually settling into work as a night janitor at a small clinic in New Mexico. The irony wasn't lost on Cal, the once respected doctor now cleaning floors in a medical facility. His last appeal to the medical board was denied, Mark added. Olivia's evidence made sure of that. Eleanor lived in a small retirement community in Florida, isolated and forgotten. Her attempts to rebuild her social connections had failed repeatedly. Cal's network ensured she remained an outcast, marked by her past betrayals. She sent another letter, Mark mentioned. Same as usual, begging for forgiveness, asking to see you. Cal dropped the unopened envelope into his shredder without comment. A decade hadn't softened his stance on betrayal. Ron Baker had parlayed his technical expertise into a legitimate security consulting firm, backed by Cal's investment. His surveillance systems now protected corporate clients across the country, though he still handled Cal's personal security needs personally. Ron's new prototype is ready for testing, Mark said. Says it's completely undetectable. Sandy Davis had risen to become the Harding Group's chief legal counsel, her tactical knowledge of the law helping Cal navigate complex corporate takeovers. She maintained the same sharp edge that had served them during the revenge plot. Sandy's team closed the Anderson merger, Mark reported. Clean sweep, just like you wanted. Raymond Harding had passed away 5 years earlier, peaceful in his sleep. Cal had ensured his father's final years were comfortable, buying him a small house near the coast where he could restore classic cars in peace. The Raymond Harding Technical Scholarship is doing well, Mark noted. 20 students this year, all going into mechanical trades. Cal's construction empire had grown beyond anyone's expectations. The Harding Group now handled major projects across the Southwest, known for ruthless efficiency and absolute reliability. Cal's reputation preceded him. A man who kept his promises, rewarded loyalty, and destroyed opposition. The city council approved our bid for the downtown revitalization project, his assistant added. Unanimous vote. Fear and respect had proven profitable companions. Cal's experience with betrayal had taught him to structure his empire on absolute control and verified trust. His inner circle remained small but fiercely loyal, each member vetted through years of service. Lucas, Cal's lawyer brother, had attempted reconciliation 5 years ago, seeing an opportunity to profit from his brother's success. Cal's response had been brief and final. Family doesn't betray family. The Harding Group's corporate culture reflected its founder's philosophy. Loyalty was rewarded generously. Betrayal meant not just termination, but systematic destruction of future prospects. Former employees who violated trust found themselves unemployable in the industry. Thompson tried to sell project plans to Robertson Construction, Mark mentioned. We handled it. Robertson's backing out of the Dallas market next week, Cal noted with satisfaction. Amazing what people will do to avoid our attention. Cal's personal life remained private and carefully controlled. He'd never remarried, though not for lack of opportunity. Business magazines regularly named him among Texas's most eligible bachelors. But the lessons of betrayal had left permanent marks. His new house, a fortified estate outside Houston, reflected his transformed personality, secure, imposing, and completely under his control. Ron's security systems made it a technological fortress. The new perimeter sensors are online, Mark reported. Nothing moves within a mile without us knowing. Cal's revenge had evolved into something larger than mere personal vengeance. He'd built a legacy on its foundations, a business empire that operated on the principles he'd learned during that crucial summer. Trust must be earned, loyalty must be absolute, and betrayal must have consequences. Senator Williams called again about the highway contract. His assistant mentioned, "Tell him my terms haven't changed," Cal replied. "He either plays by our rules or finds another contractor." The power to destroy lives had become the power to build fortunes. Cal wielded both with the same cold that had marked his revenge. His employees understood that working for the Harding Group meant subscribing to its founder's code. Mark's security team maintained surveillance on potential threats, both personal and professional. They developed a reputation for catching problems before they developed. Roberts was sharing bid information, Mark said. "We got proof." "Handle it," Cal instructed. "Make sure he understands why." The lesson would be clear, as it had been with Jenny, David, and Eleanor. Cross Cal Harding, and your life changes permanently. Sandy's legal department had perfected the art of legitimate destruction. They operated within the law while ensuring targets had no chance of recovery. Roberts will be lucky to find work as a parking attendant, Sandy promised later that day. Legal but thorough. Cal's empire rested on a foundation of fear, respect, and absolute control. The betrayed husband had become a corporate titan who could destroy lives with a phone call or build fortunes with a signature. The annual Industry Awards dinner provided a perfect illustration. Cal received the Lifetime Achievement Award for his contributions to Texas construction, but everyone in the room knew his real achievement: creating a business empire where loyalty was the only currency that mattered. "Your success story inspires us all," the presenter gushed. Cal's acceptance speech was brief. Success comes from understanding people's true nature and acting accordingly. The message wasn't lost on his audience. They'd all heard stories of what happened to those who crossed Cal Harding. In quiet moments, Cal sometimes reflected on his transformation. The pain of betrayal had forged him into something harder, colder, more powerful. He'd taken the lessons of that summer and built an empire on them. His father's old advice about doing things right the first time had evolved into a corporate philosophy. Do it right, do it completely, and make sure everyone understands the consequences of betrayal. The annual company Christmas party demonstrated the duality of his leadership. Loyal employees received generous bonuses and genuine appreciation. But everyone understood the underlying message. Loyalty brought rewards, betrayal brought destruction. 10 years, Mark mused during a quiet moment. Did you ever think it would lead to this? The revenge taught me how the world really works, Cal replied. Everything since then has just been applying the lesson. The lesson continued to serve him well. The Harding Group's success proved that fear could be more profitable than friendship, control more valuable than trust. Jenny's latest attempt to rebuild her life had failed. A simple phone call from Cal's office had ensured that. David's night shift at the clinic stretched endlessly ahead of him, his medical career a distant memory. Eleanor's retirement community remained her prison, her social isolation complete. But Cal had moved beyond mere revenge. He'd created something larger, more permanent. A business empire built on the principles he'd learned during his campaign of vengeance. The betrayed husband had become the corporate titan. The victim had become the victor. And the lesson remained clear. Betrayal carried consequences that lasted a lifetime. Cal Harding stood at his office window, surveying the city he was helping to build. The past was sealed away, but its lessons lived on in the empire he created. The serpent hadn't just shed its skin, It had grown into a dragon, and the world had learned to fear its bite. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.